What happened at Yellowstone that shocked the entire world? Join us to uncover the truth in the latest episode of Top Secret. What happened at Yellowstone that left the entire world stunned and amazed? The once serene and untouched land suddenly became the epicenter of chaos and wonder, where fierce wolves rose from the brink of extinction, overturning all order. The mystery behind that horrifying transformation will send shivers down your spine, leaving you both eager to uncover it and unable to look away. In 1995, 14 wolves were transported by truck and snowcat to the Yellowstone National Park headquarters in Wyoming. After years of separation, this is the first time they have returned to their ancestral land, an event akin to a triumphant anthem for their entire species. After that first wolf pack, many others gradually appeared, and the wolf population naturally grew over time. But they didn't just multiply, they transformed the entire ecosystem of the area. The herd of antlered deer in the park was hunted, reducing their numbers by nearly half, from around 177,000 to very few. Just 30 years later, Yellowstone had transformed so drastically that no one could recognize its former appearance. The appearance of the wolf pack doesn't just affect a single individual, but also triggers a series of profound and far-reaching transformations. Bears, beavers, coyotes, trees, even the economy and the flow of rivers are all affected. Everything began with a seemingly small choice, yet it triggered a domino effect of immense magnitude, far beyond all expectations. Zoe was once one of the top predators in Yellowstone for thousands of years, when the land was still wild and untouched by human footprints. They live freely and contribute to balancing the ecosystem in their own unique way. But by 1872, when Yellowstone was officially recognized as the first national park of the United States, everything had changed. Back then, people didn't care about protecting wildlife. They even considered hunting a matter of course. Wild boars are notorious for their ferocity and pose a threat to livestock, which is why they are often hunted relentlessly. Not only tourists or hunters, but even the park officials had a hand in this bloody massacre. By 1926, the gray wolf had been nearly eradicated from the Yellowstone region. However, people still occasionally spot a few lone wolves passing through this area, but they are merely fleeting travelers, no longer considering this place their home. The domino effect and what nature teaches us. The issue didn't stop with the wolves disappearing. When the apex predator was wiped out, the ecosystem in Yellowstone began to destabilize. The herd of moose no longer has natural predators, so they multiplied rapidly, and the consequences were hardly surprising. Just a few years later, the park had severely deteriorated. The team of scientists who visited this place in 1929 and 1933 couldn't help but exclaim at the devastating scene, and over time, everything only grew worse. Deer voraciously graze on grass and gnaw at the branches of hardwood trees like poplars and birches, leading to soil erosion and the gradual withering of vegetation. For the Vietnamese, that image evokes the scene of a rice field ravaged by a swarm of locusts, left in utter devastation. Deer not only graze on plants but also destroy the shelters of smaller species like mice or hedgehogs. This causes a severe decline in their populations due to the loss of hiding places from predators. The domino effect continued to spread. Bears lost their source of berries to store fat before winter, bees and hummingbirds no longer had flowers to gather nectar, and birds had no trees left to build nests. It all started when the wild deer roamed freely with no one to control them. Back in the day, many people believed that eliminating all wolves was the best way to protect livestock and human lives. But in reality, nature does not operate in such a simple way. The removal of a crucial step like elimination caused the entire system to collapse, leaving behind dire consequences that few had anticipated. Since ancient times, Native Americans have celebrated the panther in their legends, regarding it as either a fierce warrior or a mystical spirit. But when the Europeans arrived, they saw the zoa only as a danger to be eradicated. That very mindset led to a prolonged extermination campaign, driving the gray wolf to near extinction across the 48 U.S. states by 1950. Only a few small herds remain in Minnesota and Michigan. The story of Yellowstone is a clear testament to how deeply humans have interfered with nature. The cost they have to pay may be far greater than they imagined. The consequences of a deer losing control and the lesson on fear. When the wolves left Yellowstone, the elk became the most destructive threat, especially along the riverbanks in the park. Just before that, while the wolf was still on the prowl, the deer remained highly vigilant. Every time they went to the river to drink, they didn't dare stay long, afraid of being ambushed at any moment. When the top predator disappears, the deer herd gathers freely along the riverbank, gnawing away all the shrubs growing by the water's edge. They eat so fast that the plants can't recover, especially when they swarm in large numbers. Their massive hooves trampled the riverbank, sending rocks and earth tumbling down, turning the once clear water murky with mud and silt. The result is that fish no longer have clear water to live in, while beavers lack trees and clean flowing streams to build their dams. The disappearing dams leave fish, amphibians, and otters in even greater distress. All these troubles stem from the absence of the wolf pack. People noticed that the deer herd had caused significant damage, so the park management decided to step in and address the issue. They tried using traps to capture and relocate the deer herd, but all efforts were unsuccessful. They then shifted to hunting fewer deer, and this continued for over 30 years until the 1960s. But does that really solve the problem? In reality, yes, but the effect is negligible. From 1920 to 1968, relocating tens of thousands of deer helped prevent the park from further deterioration, but it did not bring any significant improvement. Everything is stuck in place, not going down but also unable to move forward. At this point, the local hunters began complaining to the council members again that there were too few deer left, nothing left for them to hunt. Hearing this, the senators clearly understood the budget allocated for Yellowstone, so the deer population control efforts were halted. The deer were free to multiply again, and as their numbers grew, the soil quality in the park deteriorated further. Not only were the trees destroyed, but a series of other organisms were also affected in a chain reaction. The bison herds suddenly grew larger as they no longer had to compete with gray wolves, but this proved detrimental to the pronghorn antelope. It's hard to find any species in the park that is not just the wolves hunting deer that helps control the population, their very presence alters the deer. That system is dubbed the ecosystem of fear. This means that when deer fear being hunted, they don't dare eat or drink leisurely but must always keep their heads up to stay alert for enemies. Fear causes them to eat less, move constantly, and avoid lingering too long in one place. As a result, plants have space to grow and the ecosystem suffers less damage. At Yellowstone, when there's no erosion, the deer are almost inactive in winter. They just stand still in one spot and nibble on everything from grass to young trees. Long ago, fear drove them to flee in every direction, but now they casually wreak havoc without a care in the world. The situation has deteriorated to the point where many biologists propose reintroducing wolves into the wild to control the deer population. But the state government was not very enthusiastic about this idea, especially after having put so much effort into eliminating all those predatory animals. It wasn't until the 1940s that studies began to reveal the significance of erosion, gradually changing the perception of this phenomenon. By the 1960s, both the public and the scientific community had gained a clearer understanding of ecosystems and the value of large predators such as foxes. In 1991, the U.S. Congress directed the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to conduct an environmental impact study, with the explicit goal of reintroducing wolves to Yellowstone National Park. This decision immediately sparked a fierce wave of controversy. Farmers near the park strongly opposed it, fearing that lions might escape and prey on their cattle. That concern was entirely justified, as livestock attacks did indeed occur later on. Additionally, several environmental organizations also oppose this, arguing that the mole species is not adequately protected under the Endangered Species Act. But in the end, the plan was still carried out. In January 1995, experts from the US and Canada captured 14 striped skunks in the eastern forest of Jasper National Park. This quantity was transported to Yellowstone in 2 batches, 8 on January 12 and 6 on January 20. Since they couldn't be released immediately, they were temporarily kept in 3 enclosures to gradually acclimate to their new environment. In March 1995, the enclosures were opened, and between the 21st and the 31st, all 14 foxes were released into the wild. Then, 17 more wolves were released into the wild. To ease ranchers' concerns, the Defenders of Wildlife organization compensated households that lost livestock to wolf attacks. The journey to bring the gullies back was far from simple, but it marked a crucial turning point, offering Yellowstone the chance to gradually restore the natural balance lost over nearly a century. This story demonstrates that there are times when humans need to learn to correct mistakes by letting nature take its course. The success of Bay Zoe and the revival of Yellowstone. In January 1996, another pack of wolves was brought from Canada to Yellowstone, bringing the total number of individuals to 31, after the first 14 had been reintroduced there in 1995. Initially, the release of the eroded soil was expected to take about 3 to 5 years, but it turned out this was the final batch. The park managers believed that the level of erosion was sufficient for them to naturally develop and form a new population. And the results proved them completely right. Some experts worry that the herd of Banteng will instinctively try to return north, where they were once captured. However, individuals that have adapted to the new environment have chosen to stay. In fact, they even secretly fed the tigers elk meat to get them accustomed to the new dish. And clearly, they loved it. By the year 2000, Yellowstone National Park had 8 wolf packs with a total of 119 individuals living in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, which spans approximately 88,900 square kilometers, despite the park itself covering only 8,800 square kilometers. By 2013, the herd population had grown to 14 herds with 174 individuals. Although there were fluctuations, sometimes decreasing before rebounding, the numbers have stabilized in recent years at around 10 herds and approximately 100 animals. The decline is primarily concentrated in the northern region, where the deer population has significantly dropped and land area continues to shrink. Additionally, diseases such as canine distemper and mange have worsened the situation. However, overall, this is a natural process, and the return of erosion is considered a significant achievement. Wolves have not only helped reduce the deer population from 17,000 in 1995 to just 4,000 today but have also contributed to balancing the ecosystem. Don't worry about the deer, for the strongest ones will survive, making the herd more resilient than ever. Hunting deer also provides an abundant food source for many other species such as crows, martens, foxes, eagles, grizzly bears, black bears, woodpeckers, magpies, and coyotes. Before releasing the wolves, it was estimated that each would hunt about 12 deer per year, but in reality, the number reached 22. Trees like willows, birches, and poplars grow more densely in thick forests. The wolf also alters the behavior of deer through what is known as the ecology of fear. Deer usually avoid areas prone to ambush, such as valleys or gorges, for fear of being hunted. As a result, these areas have a chance to recover. The riverside trees have grown lush again, the land is no longer severely eroded, and even the flow of the streams has changed direction. With just about 30 wolves, the entire park underwent a dramatic transformation, triggering a cascade of positive changes that left everyone astonished. This shows that sometimes, just restoring a small piece can magically transform the entire natural picture. The ripple effect and unexpected benefits. The return of erosion benefits not only plants but also supports biodiversity. When the deer population declines, grizzly bears benefit significantly because more berries grow, providing enough for them to store fat in preparation for winter. As a result, the bear population has increased significantly. However, grassland erosion has become more severe. Before the wolves returned, they were the most abundant and stable species in Yellowstone due to the lack of competition. But just 2 years later, the number of grassland sheep had nearly halved due to competition from gray sheep. It may sound cruel, but it's the law of nature. As grassland erosion decreased, the fox population increased, leading to changes in the numbers of rabbits, fawns, mice, and ground nesting birds, the fox's preferred prey. This directly affects the amount of trees, seeds, and insects consumed, leading to changes in plant life as well as soil microbial populations. While soil erosion harms grasslands, it inadvertently helps rabbits and mice thrive, providing an abundant food source for predators such as hawks, civets, foxes, and badgers. Beavers are also a prime example. In 2001, Yellowstone had only one beaver colony, but by 2011, the number had grown to 9. Erosion forces deer to move more, no longer grazing on the beaver's primary food source in winter. If beavers could regrow, would they have enough materials to build dams and rapidly increase their population? Beaver dams help regulate water flow, maintain soil moisture, create a cool environment for fish, and also serve as a habitat for otters, waterfowl, amphibians, and many other animals. Simply put, the presence of beavers makes everything much better. Not only that, they also bring significant economic benefits. When first released into the wild in 1995, they became famous and drew attention like a sensational new band making their debut. In 2005, over 100,000 visitors flocked to Yellowstone just to witness the erosion phenomenon, contributing $30 million to the surrounding area. Thanks to erosion, the area around the park earns an additional $43 million annually from tourism. The number of visitors has steadily increased since that time. In Montana, although wolf-watching tourism is still in its early stages, it has shown potential to become a significant source of income. Since the decision to bring back the mangroves, both nature and people have benefited. Proof that sometimes living in harmony with nature is the smartest way to achieve sustainable development. The Kington Amory Hotel in Bozeman has just launched a new service, a whale-watching tour package starting at $624. The service package includes one overnight stay and a day of exploring Yellowstone National Park. At the same time, the newly opened Cesar Locke Resort partnered with the renowned naturalist Nathan Valley. This person charges $800 per day, which is equivalent to the rates of other local guides. People are willing to pay money just to see wild foxes in nature with their own eyes. This tour package was so incredibly hot that a year later, the Kington Hotel launched its own exclusive tour priced at $950 per day. He even set up his own team of tour guides. In the summer of 2022, the Four Seasons Resort in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The sky stands out even more with the announcement of a $116,000 stargazing package, which includes a private flight to Yellowstone's North Gate. The price is staggeringly high, yet there are still people willing to pay, just to catch a glimpse of this legendary creature with their own eyes. Yellowstone is perhaps the greatest place on Earth to witness the phenomenon of erosion. The erosion has transformed this entire region, not just ecologically but also economically. The growth of tourism has created many jobs for local residents, particularly in Billings, Montana, home to 106,000 people. The Yellowstone River water is now cleaner, partly due to the presence of erosion as mentioned earlier. Montana thrives on agriculture and ecotourism, notably home to 2.2 million cattle, twice the state's human population. Every year, Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks welcome around 8 million visitors. Here are the 2 English translation options based on your Vietnamese text. A local once joked that if you want to start a fight in Montana, just walk into a bar and bring up soil erosion. However, in reality, erosion is not as concerning as people often think. In the initial release phase in 1995, no livestock were killed. In the Bakchiachi region, livestock losses due to erosion account for less than 1% of the total damages. Gradually, people began to understand and became more tolerant of this animal. A recent study revealed that in 2023, 74% of the population expressed tolerance toward erosion, a significant increase compared to 50% in 2017 and only 41% in 2012. This is an encouraging sign, showing that awareness is improving in a positive direction. Losses and the balance of nature. But not everything went smoothly. January 2025, Yellowstone was shrouded in sorrow as the Wolf Queen 907F passed away. It passed away on Christmas Day due to severe injuries from the battle with the Rescue Creek Pack. At nearly 12 years old, 907F has lived significantly longer than the average lifespan of wolves in this region, which is only about 3.5 to 4 years. It's astonishing how it overcame all hardships. Losing an eye in childhood, then growing old and becoming lame. Nevertheless, from 2016 to now, it has still led the herd and given birth to 10 litters, setting a record at the park. 907F is so beloved by the staff here that a naturalist is writing a book about its life and death. At the same time, Spitfire, the nickname of 926F, also passed away near the park gate in Montana. As a famous British shorthair